Shortly, we'll start with Unit 2, which is about how the speech organs work in English. We talked about Unit 1, and Unit 1 was merely a description of the entire book, advices or yeah, advices for the or pieces of advice for the teacher and the student, and also the presentation of some basic phonetic terms. In this unit, Unit 2, how about the speech organs work in English? The, the main focus is on speech sound production and the speech organs involved. So generally speaking, we will start presenting a general outline of the process that happens whenever a sound is produced. So whenever we are producing a sound like R, like A, like O, the lungs push the air, or the air is pushed through the lungs and it goes into the windpipe or the air passage. And as it moves through this windpipe to the larynx and entering the oral cavity, many changes happen to the air. And these different changes result in producing different speech sounds. So in all languages, we speak with air from the lungs, we draw it into the lungs quickly, and we release it slowly, and then interfere with its passage in various ways and at various places. Now this shows how speech sound is made. So if there was a question how speech sound is made, or you were asked to describe the process of speech sound production, these three lines describe this process clearly. To use this image, I think the explanation or the whole process will be easy or will be easily understood. Now, in order to produce any speech sounds, the air which are or the air which is in the lungs is pushed through the lungs and it enters the windpipe. Here we have the windpipe. Now, as the air enters the windpipe and it keeps moving to the larynx, then it enters the oral cavity. Many changes happen here to the air. All these changes or modifications, they result in having different English speech sounds. So all the 44 English phonemes, they are made due to the changes which happen to the air as it passes here through the windpipe, the larynx, and the oral cavity or the nasal cavity and out of the mouth. Now, in order to accomplish this speech sound production, we need what is called speech organs. Now, in figure 2.1, here we have a figure showing the organs of speech. These are the nasal cavity, the lips, the teeth, the larynx, the palate, tongue, pharynx, and vocal cords. We will start with 2.1, the vocal cords. If you see here in this figure, I have two small bands of elastic tissue lying opposite each other across the air passage. Now these two small bands, we call them the vocal cords. So the vocal cords, they are two small bands of elastic tissue which can be thought of as two flat strips of rubber lying opposite each other across the air passage. The space here between the vocal cords is called the glottis. Now, the glottis here, it refers to the space or the gap between the vocal cords. Having defined the vocal cords, now we'll talk about the function. Now, what functions do the vocal cords have in speech sound production? Obviously, they can be used to produce three types of sounds. The first type is called the glottal stop. So I can use the vocal cords to produce the glottal stop, and this is done by when the compressed air is followed by a sudden release. Now, the compressed air in the vocal cords, the air is first stopped, then it suddenly released, and the resulting sound is called a glottal stop. Now, the definition of the glottal stop, it refers to the holding back of the compressed air followed by a sudden release. The second type of sounds which are used by the vocal cords what is called voiced sounds. Now, voiced sounds, they are used whenever there is a vibration of the vocal cords. So if the vocal cords vibrate, the sound, we call it voiced. Here, what happens here is that the vocal cords, they close and open rapidly. Now, this rapid opening and closing of the vocal cords result in sounds which are called voiced sounds. The third type of sounds produced by the vocal cords is what we call it voiceless sounds. Now, voiceless sounds happen when the vocal cords do not vibrate. So this means that the vocal cords are drawn apart so that the air can pass out freely between them and there is no vibration.